Hi. On the last video we said we'd be talking about a subject that not many people know a lot about, and that is black-eyed kids. Now, for those who don't know anything about them, they are supposed to be a group of kids aged between the age of 6 and 16. They target adults either at their cars or at their homes. They'll ask for a lift somewhere, or they'll knock on the door and ask to come in for a drink of water, maybe use the phone, anything just to get in the house. They can't actually walk in, can they?
No.
No, they have to be invited in. Now, no one knows what they actually are. Some say they're vampires, some say extraterrestrials, some say demons. But the one thing they do know about these kids is their eyes. They are the deepest, darkest eyes ever. They're black, completely black. There's no iris, no pupil, no whites. They're just completely black. And that is what people notice the most, obviously.
And every encounter is the same as well, the intense fear. Usually it's before they even open the door.
Yeah.
So they're just overwhelmed with fear.
A fear they've never ever known before. But I think the most logical, to me, explanation where these kids come from is from an ancient American Indian tribe. And they had a dark spirit called an Otcon. Now, this Otcon would make the women of the tribe pregnant. When the babies were born, they were born with chalky white skin and deep black eyes. And they knew them babies were going to grow up to be evil children, so they killed them. Then they burnt their bodies to make sure they could never come back again. But the Otcon could also infect the kids who were already in their tribe. If they were playing in the fields or the forest, they'd just go after them. And the kids would come back home, their eyes would be black, and they'd just be staring into space. And they'd just chant the same thing over and over again. No one knew what they were chanting, but in the end the tribe just disappeared. They don't know whether they were killed or what. They just vanished into thin air. But to me, something like that is more logical than vampires, ETs or demons.
So they probably vanished because they've all gone up into space.
Yeah, well, yeah, you just don't know. Nobody knows. The tribe just went. So anyway, when we asked for speaker stories, we got one in particular in that we didn't want to read out the other day because it is about this subject. So we thought we'd give it its own, well, read it out on its own because it's so, well, it's just a specialist subject really, isn't it? It's weird. So Vicky's got the story.
And I'm reading it, so, right, this is Mark's story. Just the thought of the black-eyed kid terrifies me. It never used to. I can never understand why they were such a big deal. I read these online stories and watched videos about them, just like hundreds of other people. I just couldn't believe that kids like that existed. So I decided I'd show people just how unscary these things were, that they probably didn't even exist anyway. I'm the kind of person who needs to see it for myself. From all the research I did, all the videos I looked at, I gathered that you didn't find them, they found you, and it seemed it was down to chance if they did find you. So I came up with a plan. I began putting up anonymous ads on various social media sites, but my ads were to the black-eyed kids. I wrote, "Black-eyed kids, you don't scare me. I want to meet you at 10 PM on Friday at the park near my home. Show me that there is something to be afraid of." The park was only a 5-minute walk from my home, so every Friday I walked down there, making sure I was there for 10 PM. Of course, putting an ad on social media, I knew other people would turn up, try and scare me, and they did, but no one too bad. No one too bad. A couple of teenagers and a man stood there taunting me, telling me I was dicing with death, but never any black-eyed kids. I did this every Friday night for 3 months, and then I gave up. I removed the ad. I was quite pleased with myself, and thought I'd proved that these kids don't exist. After all, I had practically invited them to come and get me. The first Friday I stopped. I was sitting at home watching TV. It was just a few minutes after 10 PM when there was a knock on the door. The second I heard that knock, I felt my skin go icy cold. It's hard to explain, but it was like I got cold inside as well as out. I just knew that that I didn't need to get up to answer the door, because I knew who it was. I was terrified already. In a split second, I knew I was wrong. I realised that people meant when they said the fear you feel is like nothing you've ever felt before. The fear is on a different level. I managed to get up and open the door, and there he was, a kid, about 9 years old, olive skin, dark hair, solid black eyes staring up at me. He then said, "Can I come in?" I couldn't talk. Finally, I managed to answer the boy, and I just said no, and I began closing the door. "We missed you at the park today," the boy said. I stopped closing the door. I looked at him. All I could think of was that they had been watching me, had followed me home, and were waiting for the right time. The boy smiled up at me. It took all the will I had to stop staring at him. I pushed the door closed and locked it. As soon as I shut the door, I realised I hadn't been breathing. I started to gasp for breath. I just stood there, facing the closed door. Then, to my horror, there were 3 knocks on my door. He was still there. Of course, I didn't answer the door, but I was so afraid that somehow he would be able to just walk in. But after around 5 minutes, it was all quiet and nothing else happened. It took me at least an hour to move from that spot, staring at the door. I didn't sleep that night or the next night. After 3 nights of no sleep at all, I collapsed with exhaustion at my desk at work. I woke up just minutes later after a nightmare of that boy. It's been around 2 years now since it happened. I'm slowly getting over it now and can sleep for a few hours at night. I'm hoping that the fear will eventually go for good, so I can get back to my normal old life. I just can't explain the absolute fear you feel when you see the eyes on these kids, and your mind somehow turns off. Your body wants to listen to what they're telling you, what they're asking. Mark thought if he told his story, it would warn others. He says these kids are evil and are very real.
So the thing that I've always thought about is what happens to the adults who actually let them in. Are they taken away somewhere? Are they killed? Nobody knows.
No, I've read countless stories, and I've never read one where they've actually let them in.
No.
Never.
I mean, it sounds silly now, but I think it did happen to me. Because quite a few years ago now, we lived in London. My husband delivered rented films, to people's houses. And one night I went with him, and it was to a block of flats. Now, I didn't want to go up, so I stayed in the car. And after a couple of minutes, a kid jumped on the car, right on the car bonnet. And he started banging on the window. And then within seconds, there was about 5 or 6 of these kids all round the car, all knocking to come in. And I did notice their eyes, and they were black. But I put my head down, not because they were black-eyed kids, because I've never heard of them in my life. It's because they looked so scary. So I put my head down, and they just vanished. Completely and utterly disappeared. When I told my husband about it, he just thought they were kids trying to get in and take the car, maybe rob me. And I thought the same after that. It had to be, because, as I said, I've never heard of these kids before. But you came a bit obsessed with them, didn't you?
Yeah, it was in the newspaper. It was a couple of years ago about I remembered the name of the place, Cannock Chase.
Oh yeah, in
Staffordshire.
Yeah.
Some woman walking a dog, I think, had seen this little girl with black eyes, and it got me into reading about them. And I had to stop because I thought, they know that I'm reading about them. They're going to turn up. They're going to knock at my door. And I told my mum, I think about last week, wasn't it, about this idea about black-eyed kids. And after this video, I mean, obviously I'll have to not, forget about it, because like last night I thought someone's going to knock at the door in a minute. Oh, no, I did.
Yeah.
When I was in bed, I was like getting really freaked out and scared, and I thought, oh, this is stupid. I don't know what it is, but it just really freaks me out, black-eyed kids.
I mean, although I don't know if they're real or not, I would not suggest doing what Mark, was it?
Yeah.
Mark did, and trying to get in contact with them, because you just never know. But it's, I suppose, if you believe in them or not, you just don't know until you actually see them, I suppose.
There are so many encounters out there, you know, they can't all be wrong, but unless you've seen for yourself, you just don't know. You don't know. They could be real, and it's one of the things that I'm not risking.
No, me either. So anyway, so that's our video for today. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.